Hi all. Our guest panelists tonight have produced between them remarkable movies and TV work for which they have won many awards. You read all about them and you saw their work. So let's welcome director Jared Frieder, Lara Alameddine, and Danielle Dubecky. Hi all.
Hi.
Hi all.
Hi, Tova.
I want to tell you that I really, really, really loved your movie. And I thought it had such a fresh take on the subject of HIV, because at the beginning you say, what? HIV, isn't it in the past? But you found a way into the movie and on that subject matter that is just so different. And the performances are really, really great. And we want to ask you a lot of questions about it. But first, I just wanted to know how you got into the business. I think I'm going to start with Danielle because you have the longest span of career.
I'm the oldest, is that what you're saying? Just go by age.
How did you get into the business?
I mean, it's one of those long tales, but it started in high school. Me and a group of friends all found film. We found a teacher that brought us into a film class. We started a film class at our high school and started making movies. Had no idea what we were doing. Got a bunch of equipment donated, made a bunch of terrible things that no one should ever see. And yet from there, we just started making short films that became slightly bigger and bigger and bigger until we finally got our first movie, like our first feature film made. And that group, it was sort of a collection of us, and then have all stuck together over many of the years.
Wow.
And yeah, no.
Well, from like high school and just about
yeah.
incredible.
So, yeah, two of my closest friends in the world both went to my high school. One of them is a partner in our company still to this day, my best friend, and the other one is a cinematographer who shot all the movies through Up in the Air. And we all started in school together, which is pretty.
It is so wonderful because many times I tell the students, you have everybody here. You have editors, you have actors, you have all of that, Exactly. And stick with it. If you're doing good work, stick with it. Don't always look bigger and bigger. Yes. Yeah. So that is amazing. You know what I noticed though about you? You have a couple of credits that are both second unit director and producer. How did that work? Were you a line producer?
No. I've always produced the movies. And then what's happened is, whether it's by need or just sort of every movie has needed to get additional footage. We always need more than what sort of we're able to manage.
Yes.
So I end up being the person that understands the movies typically creatively more than anybody else besides the director themselves. And so I'm the one out there shooting other stuff, and it's happened on every movie. Wow.
How did you get to work with Jason Reitman?
We went to two different high schools and met in high school. And he went off to medical school. He thought, oh, he's going to go to medical school. And 6 months later, he came back from medical school. Me and Tim, who I mentioned earlier, were at USC. He came back to USC, and then we met up, and he said, I want to make a short film. How do I do this? And I remember literally he came to me with a script and a bunch of Post-it notes. And that's all he had so far to figure out how to make his short. And so we got together and made the first short film, and then made every short film and all of the movie, yeah.
Gee, and I grew up in another country and I had to do all of it like from Up in the Air. That is fantastic. You did an incredible job. You did remarkable movies, whichever the connection were. It still takes a lot of talent and hard work and being smart.
Thank you.
Lara,
Hi.
you came to us from Canada.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, I went to university up there, and then I was going to major in photojournalism. That was my passion, was photography. And then I sort of took a film elective just to fill my schedule, and I fell in love with it. And I thought I was going to be a cinematographer. And I loved shooting, but I realized it's not quite like being a photojournalist, because that's like being a director and editor and all of that. So when I moved down to LA, I just sort of got into producing. Actually, Dan and I met when he was still making short films. So
What's that?
we met when he was still making short films. I was making short films. So we started producing some shorts together, and
there were a lot of parallels happening at the same time.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Because I thought you came much later. But you wrote, I read in your bio that you also did some branded shorts. And my question to you is, for the student, what is the difference between branded shorts and commercials, which is where I started?
It's really mostly the focus on branded content is taking the concept of what the product is, but really telling, like pulling the curtain back and telling a story, utilizing it. It's not an advertisement, but it's a character, basically. You take the product and turn it into a character and just use your filmmaking skills to try and, tell a unique perspective of that product.
For example, so for Honda, right? You did a spot for Honda. What did you do? How did you tell that story?
It was just about a young guy that went on an adventure, and his adventure the car ended up being the vehicle for that adventure. But yeah, we got, we're very lucky. We got given money to make a few shorts with that. And it's all character. I mean, that's basically, I think if you look through most of our career, what we focused on is character and story, regardless of what the medium is or what the genre is. And we continue to do that. And I think when you do that, you can kind of play with anything. I mean, everything tells a story. I mean, why does a commercial make you cry? It's because it connects on a character level. So I think that there's nothing that's off limits, really. It's just more focusing on, like, is there something to explore here,
Amazing. So when and why did the two of you partner up? And why did you call your company Allegiance Theater when it's a TV and film company? I was like, okay, she came from the theater and then they met. What were you thinking?
We met 21 years ago.
Wow.
And we met through film and through friends, started talking about stories and films, and started making some stuff. And this was even before we started eventually dating and then eventually get married and have a family and build a company and all the rest of it. But it was a very lucky meeting.
Well, when we finally started a company together, officially, it was many years. He had a company with Jason and I was doing my own thing. And then the next phase was us doing a company together. I think we were trying to think of a name and explore something that was the philosophy of what we wanted to create brand-wise for the company. And for us, theater is a destination. It's not an actual theater, although maybe one day we will have one. But
it's a place where people, audiences and artists meet through storytelling, right? It's a location. And
it's an allegiance to the stories that we tell, and it's allegiance to the artists that we work with, and an allegiance to the audiences to come and have the same experience that we have when we first decide to.
Okay, you're just confusing everybody, but if reminds me of a story, but maybe it's not for here. But Bertolucci once did a movie and he thought it was a comedy and nobody was laughing. And he went to the theater and he said, allow yourself to laugh. And I thought, but how many theaters and for how long can he come before the audience and say it's a comedy and laugh? Right. So it's the same with your Allegiant Theater is really a film and TV company.
Well, at least you asked the question. That's good. We're asking questions.
Jared, we are finally there with you, Jared.
Hello.
Hello. What was your path?
My path was like a little weird. I've always been a writer. I've always been writing. I studied fiction. I'm from Florida, which is one of the homes of like Southern Gothic lit, which is both grotesque and funny. And I felt very grotesque and funny. So I said, this could be a really interesting fit. And then I studied it in college, but my parents wanted me to go to law school because they wanted me to make money. And then I was like, well, maybe there's a way for me to write and make a living. And I sort of turned left from fiction into film and TV, which I had always loved, but I'm sure a lot of your students and people listening felt this way, but growing up and coming from like a small town in Florida, I did not know that this was a job someone could even have. It felt like very unattainable. And when I realized that it was something that actual human beings did, I was like, oh, this is a no-brainer for me. And started writing scripts and couldn't get anyone to read them, moved out to LA, and applied to USC's MFA. And for that application, they wanted a 10-page writing sample that sort of defined who you were as a screenwriter. And I like free wrote the first 10 pages of 3 months and dreamt up of this kid who was going through this situation where he was exposed to HIV. And then I ended up finishing the movie, and then the rest is history. And 10 years later, we're sort of right here. So pretty.
But I saw
pretty
that
well.
you did. I saw that you wrote a lot of TV.
I did. So I ended up dropping out. I ended up going to USC for a semester, and then getting hired because of the script. 3 months. It won a bunch of screenplay contests. It won the Austin Film Festival screenplay contest. Got on the blacklist, and a bunch of stuff happened where I was able to get representation. And I wrote for the show called Chasing Life on ABC. I wrote for the show called Sweet Vicious on MTV. And I sold like 4 pilots to networks and streamers, HBO, CW, Hulu. I actually sold the TV. I adapted 3 months, the screenplay in 2017 into a hour-long television series for Hulu, had my own writer's room, wrote the first 6 scripts. And then there was a merger between Fox and ABC, and the development went away. But that's how this movie came to be. So, yeah, it's been quite a ride.
Wow. So you wrote and directed this movie.
Yes, that's what they tell me. Yeah.
Why? I saw the credit. I wouldn't have believed it. I had to look at the credits a few times to make sure that it was true. But why was that subject matter so important to you?
I think for me, I always try, as like a queer filmmaker, I try and sort of tell the types of stories that I wished I could have had when I was younger. And, growing up, where I did in Florida in the 90s in the public education system, which was terrible, spoiler alert, for a long time, I thought that HIV and AIDS was still a death sentence, which it is if you don't have like access to healthcare, but we do, and we have ways to live long lives with it and be healthy. And that was just not something I knew. And so when I had to educate myself growing up, when, I had to wait, for HIV results, and realize sort of that, this narrative I was told both in school, but also that I had seen in, film and TV and theater, like Angels in America and Philadelphia and Rent, even Dallas Buyers Club, where it tells one type of AIDS and HIV story, which is period in the 80s and 90s, and it ends in death most of the time. I really wanted to tell a different type of story that sort of built on the legacy of those films and plays, but told a modern version where someone can still find joy again, and with access to medical care, live a long life. And that was really important to me. And I'm so happy that we were able to do it.
It was really a beautiful, beautiful, sensitive movie, and funny and all of that. And let me ask you, I was surprised, really, for all of you, I was really surprised how good Troy was in this movie. I mean, he was very natural. You didn't see any effort in his behalf. And yet he was like magnetic. It's like you couldn't take your eyes off him, which is really, as you producers know, it's really a sign of a star.
It's so funny. Like I'm just the biggest Troye Sivan fan of his music. I have been for years. And in my mind, and I knew that he started as an actor because he played like Baby Wolverine, Baby Hugh Jackman in one of the X-Men films. And In my head, I was like, oh, it would be so sick if Troy could play this. And, over the different iterations of the story at Hulu and as a TV show and as a movie, it was different actors attached to play it and different people. And then, when we got to MTV and I was directing and Dan and Lara came on to produce, and we were talking about who to cast, literally every single person, every gay person who's an actor between the ages of 15 and 23 auditioned for this role, every single one. And they were all amazing, but it never felt quite right. And I had always wanted it to be Troy, but I couldn't get the script to him. In come White Horse, Dan and Lara, who have, access and years of experience in this business. And they were doing their own research and we hadn't even talked about Troy, but they were watching these YouTube videos and they call me one day and they're like, hey, so we were just down the rabbit hole of gay actors on YouTube and we found this Jimmy Fallon clip of this guy named Troye Sivan. Do you know who that is? And I just burst into laughter. I was like, you're talking to his number one fan. And they were like, well, let's get the script to him. And I was like, I've tried to do that for years at Hulu now, and we've never been able to do it. And they were able to do it. And he read it and signed on, and the rest is sort of history.
Yeah, he read the script.
So
He
you
read the
got
script.
it by yourself, you and your representative or whatever got it to MTV Film?
No,
And-
MTV Films came in earlier. So once Hulu passed on the show, they sent the 6 teleplays that I had, adapted into this TV series all around town. MTV read those TV episodes and they were like, we love this story. We think it would make a better movie though. Have you ever thought about making it as a movie? Which is very funny because I originally wrote it as a movie. So I gave them the script and they came aboard. And once that happened, I brought in Dan and Lara to be my creative producers and help me tell the story cinematically. And then, yeah, they got Troy. If you guys want to talk about how you got Troy.
Yeah, I mean, Troy, it was exactly what Jared said. Lara and I thought we came up with this great idea out of nowhere. And of course,
He's had
it was
for a
years
while.
into Jared's head and anyway, beyond.
I think
So
what Troy had that, some other wonderful actors didn't have is he has an ease about him and a freshness about him. And he has this role is so tricky because, Caleb is so sort of naive in one way because he's like a hopeless romantic, but he's going through a lot, but you don't really want to watch all that thinking. And he has this ability to be light and take you somewhere in the same breath. And so I think him as just a person, he's a really authentic person.
we sent the script, and then 2 weeks later, we were sitting down having a meeting with him. He walked in the room, and it was one of those things that it just happens. He walks in the room, and we all look at each other, and we're like, I mean, that's Caleb. The whole way he held himself, he presented himself, how sweet and caring. I mean, he's incredibly cool, and Caleb is incredibly cool, but he's so accessible and easygoing in a way, and then he said,
because sometimes you have this really kind of snappy, clever dialogue, and in the wrong hands, it's not really hands, but in the wrong person or something, it can feel belabored and so, but with him, it just felt so natural.
And he said, he's like, look, guys, I'm really nervous. I haven't been a leading man in a movie before. And we said, great, hold on to that nervousness. You need that kind of energy to be part of this character. That's part of what's going on here.
I think he's naturally talented, and then Jared was able to bring out an authentic performance.
The authenticity.
Any actor, regardless of how good they are, in the wrong hands, as you said, they're entrusting you to bring out the best in them and give them sort of the right guidance. And I think Jared really did that really beautifully. He has a gift.
No question. I have just one question for you, Jared. The whole background of him having a mother who is Orthodox. I know that he himself has parents who were Orthodox. Was it yours, or did he bring that to?
That dynamic and that relationship had been in the script since its inception in
Really?
a decade ago. Yeah. All the content and the characters and the dynamics, those have sort of not changed, although, writing is rewriting. I literally rewrote the script billions of times up until literally nights before we would shoot, but like that dynamic and the dynamics in the scripts mostly stayed the same. And, you know, I grew up in South Florida, and while I have like the best and most amazing parents ever, I did grow up in a conservative and Orthodox Jewish community there. And I saw that some of my queer friends, and then what didn't have the luxury of accepting and wonderful parents like I did. And then when I got to college, I ended up going to Columbia and took a lot of writing classes at Barnard, which has a huge Orthodox population, and saw similar issues there in regarding their relationship with queerness in the queer community. And it just felt like a great foundation for that felt honest and real and could show that pain, but was also a good springboard for the shame Caleb feels about his queerness that would sort of align with the shame he felt over potentially having this HIV diagnosis. So it all felt like it clicked in pretty nicely. And then, you know, to get Amy Landecker to just come in and slay that part, we were very lucky.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Okay, let's open up for some student questions. Mike, is there any questions?
Yes, we have a question from Miguel de Campo. Miguel, we've enabled you to unmute yourself. What is your question for our guests?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Thank you very much. It's great to meet you all. My question is, what would you advise to people who want to start pitching a project to production/streaming companies?
That's a good question.
Thank you.
I don't know. I feel like I can tell you the way that sort of I did it, which is sort of writing as much as you can and sending it to your stuff to as many people as who will read it. Screenplay competitions really helped me. And then it's just, you know, being resilient, and with every no, just keep pushing out there. I feel like everyone's path is so different. I never know how to really answer that question.
Ours was a little different because we started making our own stuff. And so it got people to eventually recognize the work because we were putting it out
But
there.
I think Jared's right, which is as much as, you know, I don't know if you're a writer, a producer, a director, all of them, as much as you can create your own stuff that's like complete in some ways, whether it's a script or short, whatever that is, that's your voice. And that's what's going to help get you into spaces and rooms, and festivals are a wonderful place for that. And competitions are a wonderful place for that. And
so more than just pitching, having the work itself, I think is going to be,
pitching is difficult for like people who are like us, even established, you know, I mean, it's most of the time you're going to get a no. And so, because the business, you know, you're pitching to executives, and although they're wonderful of what they do, they're not creators. So they're not visionaries. They're more reactionary. And so the more you can give them a vision, the clearer that is, the more the pathway will open up for you, I think, just in general. That's just my piece of advice.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to meet you all.
You
Same
too.
here.
Thank you.
We have another question here. This one is from Gianna Gonzalez. Gianna, we've enabled you to unmute yourself. What is your question for our guests?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, so I'm someone who draws on my Converse. So I was wondering, what was the inspiration behind Caleb drawing on his?
First of all, I'm actually obsessed with your little frog icon. It's so cute.
Thank you.
Gosh, I don't remember when exactly that came into the script, but I also draw and graffiti and doodle over anything I can get my hands on, to the detriment of all my belongings. So it felt just like true to who I was, but it also felt like for someone who's as artistic and creative, but also anxious as Caleb, it felt like a good way to keep him busy and active and operated. And it was also, we treated it as sort of his yearbook too, you know, it's every doodle, every time either Dara or Esta or someone wrote on it, it was a memory that sort of lasted in a more permanent way on his clothing. And I just thought that was a cool way to mark time, and felt interesting and true to who he was. And yeah.
Do you have a collection of Converse?
Oh, were you asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a pair of Converse. I love drawing on them. I have all my friends draw on them, and it's my favorite thing to do. I love doing it.
You gotta
cool.
keep them, and you gotta keep adding to it now.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely will. Yeah. Thank you so much. I love the movie.
Thank you.
That's nice to hear. Thanks.
We have a question that was submitted here from Sarah Frick earlier. She's asking Danielle and Lara specifically, do you have a process of getting a film made? Do you typically start with material and then develop it and look for financing, or the other way around?
And is she here listening for the answer?
She is, yes.
Okay, yeah, got it. So, look, it's different with every single thing. We are, as producers, we're very creatively involved in the inception of projects mostly. This one was actually more unique, where we got introduced to something at the stage that it was sort of already at a studio, which doesn't happen as often for us. But we hunt stories down. We hunt and read a lot of articles and books and plays, and obviously screenplays get sent to us. So there's a lot of incoming stuff, but there's a lot of us going out and figuring out what we want to tell, the kinds of stories we want to tell. Sometimes it's a piece of news, and we go chasing down rights for, you know, who's telling that story. I mean, they come from anywhere and everywhere. There's no one answer to how we do it. I think we as storytellers, we're always trying to tell stories about something in the world that hopefully can shed light on a topic or on a story that people need to hear, without being political about it, without hitting people over the head or speaking down to people. We want to sort of enlighten people as much as we can with stories, and we want to tell important stories.
So it starts with the material with you, and do you package it?
So then in the steps of that, sure. So it depends on what it is. Sometimes we'll get a book, and we'll start packaging it even before we have a screenplay, just to help build up its quote unquote value to set it up so we can get financing for it. Sometimes we'll find a screenplay, and yeah, it'll either come with some attachments or it won't, and then we'll package it, of course. Sometimes, yeah, we we'll get wind of a book coming out. There was a book that hadn't hit the market yet. We heard about. It got very competitive. We went and found an actor who would play the eventual role once it eventually got going, to help get the rights, and got financing for that before the book was even officially finished. We had read it, but it was, so there are literally 100 different ways.
I think at this point in our careers, it comes in lots of different ways. But I think when we first started, it was definitely content is king. So it always is, but you have to have the content first in order to be able to take the next step forward. So
can I ask you a question? Do you have an agent, or do you have any kind of representation that helps you?
Yeah, well, we do. I mean, it's an interesting thing. When we have we call him, our agent is our angel. His name is John Levin, and he's kind of one of these really.
We didn't have an agent for a long time. Yeah. I mean, I think that especially, it's pretty unique to have an agent.
Yeah, most don't, and we do, although we don't rely on him to bring us the material necessarily. That's not, it's not exactly how we just have a very close relationship with him over the years.
He's amazing. He really can look at material and say, this would be great for this one, this would be a great one. He's a facilitator within CAA, which is incredible.
He's the greatest. That's the greatest facilitator, matchmaker we've ever seen.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah,
those people are just lucky. Forget it. No talent. I don't see talent there. I just see a lot of luck. So do we have another question?
We do. Victory Ugachukwu has a question. Victory, we've enabled you to unmute yourself. What is your question for our guests?
Okay, thank you for giving me this platform, and I'm very, very happy to be here. But I have a question to ask. I have been making several short movies, and at times I get confused because most people doesn't want to see what you're doing. And although the picture quality and everything is on point, but I don't have platforms to show out what what I have done so far. So I'm asking, is there any platforms or any way we can put out short works, like short movies out there for people to see and maybe get some credit or anything?
Well, the thing, have you been sending them out to film festivals?
Yes, I did once, but I didn't get a credible answer.
So I think what you have to do is send it to as many short film festivals as possible and just go out to all of them. And every short you make, send it to all of them. And what happens is, ignore the rejections. You know that they're coming. It always happens, right? It happens in life. There's going to always be rejections. But when you start to get the acceptances from some of the festivals, all of a sudden it'll balloon, and like you'll see one acceptance will become 5 festivals, and 5 festivals will become 15 festivals, and all of a sudden your movie is playing at a bunch of festivals. So you have to put the films out into the film festival world, and go out to as many of them as possible. Before I ever made any movie, feature film, I must have produced 25 short films. And I cannot tell you how incredible the short film festival experience is when you start actually utilizing it. All those short film festivals need shorts. They don't have enough. They never have enough. They're desperate for more and more work.
And the ones that you can attend or network or what, you'll meet people.
You'll meet so many people, and you'll engage with audiences that will get to watch your work, and you'll get to learn from those audiences what your film does as you're playing it, how people react to it. I mean, that's the beauty of that process. And then you'll bring that knowledge to the next film you make, and it'll make your work better, and it'll give you a chance to talk to people, audiences and other filmmakers. You got to just keep applying and forget about how many rejections you're collecting. Ignore all of those and just just keep applying.
And if you get rejected from the big one, go to the smaller one.
All of them, literally. There's tons.
The thing is, we get rejections all the time, so it's not. The rejections never stop. It's
not personal. It's not personal.
It's never personal.
Not at all. So just keep moving. Just keep going.
You got to apply to the film festivals.
Thank you so much.
We have a question here from Valentina Velasco. Valentina, we've enabled you to unmute yourself. What is your question for our guests?
Hey, I hope you're having a good day. Can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you. You too.
Great. Okay, so my question is, how do you choose your ideal cast?
Oh,
Jared, do you want to take that?
Sure. I feel like it's so much of it is about one, having a great casting director. Obviously that's paramount because they're the ones sifting through auditions and self-tapes to sort of figure out who the best crop of actors might be for a part. But I think for me, it was really also about a gut check. Like when you're watching the audition, when you're feeling that actor in the moment, in that story, in that character's shoes, do you believe them? I think that for me was the biggest question. Do I believe them? Yes, they might be funny, or they might be able to portray something in an interesting way, but do I believe that they're real? So I think that's sort of how I went about it. What do you guys think?
I mean, I think, I'll push you on that same one, just because obviously you did a lot of auditions, but then someone like Vivek, who we ended up getting, wasn't through an audition, although you went through the audition process along the way to that.
Yeah.
Like what you just said. So, I mean, I think, look, it's a combination of that process. That casting process is so helpful to get to that authenticity of what the role that you're going to cast, whether you cast it through the casting process or you cast it through the offer process, which is ultimately where we got Troy. We made an offer to him and sat and met with him and then worked it out.
But also, I think, especially for, when you're first starting out, I think the audition process does 2 things. It's like a really important process. One, it helps you when you can see the person that fits the role, like they pop out. It's like when you're in love. It's like, you can't really explain it, but it just happens. But two, sometimes what it does is it reveals certain things that maybe whether it's a hole in the story or maybe something about the character that's not landing quite, or maybe it gives you some other idea. So it's like, making stories, whether it's film or television, you're continually evolving it. And so I feel like even when you have your cast, like before you go shoot, you do a table, like it's really imperative that you do table reads, because you start to learn about the chemistry of everyone together and how that again shifts things, and we have to change dialogue. And so it's kind of like, to me, the audition process or the casting process is the beginning of the continual evolution of the characters that you are on this journey with. And so it's a very helpful thing, not just to cast, but to actually elevate your storytelling.
To find the truth. You're looking for honesty.
Yeah.
I think it's always like Jared said, you're
said.
looking for honesty. And honesty can be honestly funny, it can be honestly sad, it can be honestly whatever that emotion is or whatever that feeling and connection is, but honest, it has to be honest. You got to see who delivers you an honest performance.
Yeah, thank you. That answers my question. Really good. Thank you.
Great.
You're welcome.
Okay. I have some question. Mike, do you still have questions of student?
No. Go ahead and ask yours.
Your script, and obviously in the movie, was it's snappy dialogue, and it was funny. It had a lot of humor. And did you from the beginning decided that you're going to bring humor into a subject that maybe is not that humorous? Was it something that got evolved maybe because of a table read or something like that, that said, wait a minute, we need to bring some humor? What was the process for that?
Yeah, I think it was definitely always there. That's just sort of my voice. And, Caleb is a character that's loosely based on me. I always say that Caleb is the kid I wished I could have been in high school, and Esta is the kid I was in high school. And so, yeah, I mean, I feel like this is a very queer thing, but it's also anyone who's been through trauma. Just coping with humor and comedy has been sort of my lifeline. And I feel like authentically for a character like Caleb, he views the world the same way, and he has those same coping mechanisms of just dealing with hardship through being vulnerable, but also being funny. And I also think it's a great way to make a story like this more accessible to people. I feel like you catch them off guard when they laugh because they're not thinking, they're just reacting, and they're in it. But it was always there. It was always there. Everything I write is sort of that same tone.
The script was hilarious. When we first read that script, that monologue when he dresses down those two kids in the mini mart, I mean, it was like we were like falling over laughing the very first time.
I don't think we would have made this movie that's Jared's voice is very unique and hilarious. But yeah, I think that's the beauty of the film, is that it's got heart and authenticity, but it doesn't take itself so seriously, because life isn't so serious all the time. Even when we're all going through hardships, there are the times that are really, really hard. And then there's times where just, we laugh our way through things because it's so insane. And I think that's what's most relatable about it. But for sure, it was always in the makeup of this movie.
Absolutely. So did Troy gave you those two songs did he write it for the movie, or whether those two songs existed already and he kind of gave it to you? Do you know? I just love his music so much, and I think tonally it just fit the movie so much.
Yeah, I mean, we were fortunate enough that he wrote those songs for the movie to picture. We always knew that he was going to write some songs for the film. And he was really excited to write them from Caleb's point of view, which was a great exercise for him, because he always says that, he goes into the studio, he makes music. It's always for the most part, heavily autobiographical. And this was the opportunity to flex a sort of different muscle. And, we had talked at length about what those songs could be about. And we always knew there was going to be a song about the experience of waiting, because that's so much of what this film is about too. It's sort of like life happens while you wait. Caleb is very active during those 3 months and grows up and figures out who he is. And Troy wanted to capture that romantically through a song. And then Trouble was a song that, he wrote about, young love and sort of getting a little ahead of yourself and knowing that it might not be the best thing for you, but you want it right now. And I'm, as someone, again, who's such a huge fan, that was such a pinch me moment.
Yeah. His falling in love with Esther was actually kind of surprising. I wouldn't have thought that this is the kind of person that he would go for, but there was something also very kind of authentic and different enough, I guess, or something that he would be somehow, attracted to. It was a very, very beautiful movie. There's no question about it. Now let's go to the high voltage thing, which is like a movie with Clooney, Julia Roberts, Jodie Foster directing. What happened there? What were the steps to get this kind of incredible cast and
that was
to
an
be
easy
such
one.
a
What are you talking
successful
about?
commercially?
We'll try to do the short version of it. We were sent a script.
No, we have all night for this kind of a
Oh,
story.
okay, got it. Okay, good. I didn't know. Okay, we were sent a script. It was a spec script that was sent out to us. We were just in the middle of finishing Up in the Air, I think. No one had seen it yet, so it was still just sort of out. And like we were in post. And this script reminded us a bit of Dog Day Afternoon. And actually the very first script we got was even more like Wag the Dog. It was like a very funny movie about this same situation. And we went, wow, this is incredible. But I think it's a little more potent probably as a story than just being something you should laugh off. I don't think it can only be something that remains funny throughout. So we said we need to do a rewrite on it. We worked with the writers to rewrite it. And from the very first moment we had it, we said, this has got to be for George. But we knew, and especially having been working with him, and especially so recently in a movie like Up in the Air, we can't just send it to him in any old shape. We needed to get it into the right shape.
Well, that's for any actor.
It's true for any actor. Yeah, you're talking about people that are at the top of their game. They've got, when they choose to make a movie, they have a lot to lose if they make the wrong choices. So they got to make the right choices anyway. So we started redeveloping the script with the writers, and eventually Jodie came aboard and wanted the same thing we wanted from where the script needed to go. So she had a bunch of additional thoughts to it. And then we found a writer friend, Jamie Linden, who came on to finally do the rewrite that got us to where we needed to go.
But in the middle of all that, we lost our financing.
We lost financing. We had to go get some new money. John Levin showed up at that point and said, I'm going to help you figure that out. We got that figured out. And then Jamie had so much trouble trying to crack this one moment in the movie. It went through this it was like a writer's crisis of coming into something where okay, the whole thing, it takes place in real time and it has all these constraints, and I kept backing into a corner.
It was
very technical.
It was a 2 to 3 year process, basically.
It took a long time.
And then once we went through all that evolution of script and financing and all this stuff, we finally felt it was in a good place to share. And
we sent it to George, and within a week he said yes.
But we still didn't have financing at that point. So.
Well, that didn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. At that point, it didn't matter. We didn't have financing. So then we got George.
And
exactly.
Once we set it up at Sony.
And then it was a bidding war.
Yeah, and then we set it up at Sony, and that Julia came on after that because we were casting the other role.
One brings the other. And
Yeah.
At that point it was.
And Jodie came after George, right? Jodie.
No, before. No. Jodie came while we were in the middle of that developing the rewriting. Yeah. So she showed up. It probably was a year and a half from the moment she showed up until the moment George came on. It was another year and a half.
Yeah. She's very smart in development also.
Yeah.
So, okay, Jared, what's next for you?
Yeah, Jared.
That's such. Oh no. We
missed
the
it.
Tell
Well-
all, Jared, tell all.
w- uh, um, Dan and Laura and I are taking out a show with A24. What is the age range of people who are listening into this Zoom call right now?
They're
Oh,
college,
it's
they're
all-
college students.
college.
University, yeah, they're
Yeah.
older.
So it's called Daddy. And it's sort of an hour-long series, comedy drama in the vein of 6 Feet Under meets Boogie Nights, about this family from the Valley that has a much larger than average family secret, which is back in the 80s, parents Cliff and Linda used to be porn stars. And when their old porn is uploaded to the internet and their 3 kids, ages 31, 25, and 16, find out their parents used to be porn stars, the dad is inspired to go back into porn after 30 years as a daddy and fight his midlife crisis.
Tova, look at Tova's face right now. She's like, really? That's next.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so glad I asked you. Yes.
Yeah. So we're pitching that, of course, around Father's Day. And so that is what's up next. So hopefully we'll be fortunate enough to make that, because we're all very excited about it. I was literally working on it up until the moment I hopped on the Zoom.
Well, I think it's unique, and knowing your sense of humor, that it's good, and considering the level of excellence between all the 3 of you, I trust that it's going to be funny, bawdy, and in good taste. So
From your lips, Tova, absolutely, yes.
Listen, here's what I can say. The dad, he's like father of the year, this guy.
Yeah, he is.
He's great.
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I just think that, as I said, you consistently put out good work. I think it's important also for the student to know that, you care about the material. And once you have really, really good material, somebody will find it. I think what happens many times, you write first draft and you just think, okay, that's it. I gave it all I can. And you just want to go out there, and you really have to let it rest for a while, give some people that you trust to read it. And suddenly, ideas come in, energy comes in. And then, the closer you get to a finished product good enough to show around, the better chances you have for the
100%.
movie eventually get made.
Yeah,
That is basically what it is.
it's so
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, I wish you tremendous success,
Thank you.
both for this movie. I hope the students are going to, they usually do, write about it in social media. We're going to put it in our social media, and it will keep the interest, to go and
Thank
see
you.
it at Paramount Plus. We have a campus in Australia. I think they would be very, very interested in that because, Troy, of course, is Australian. So I'm very glad that we did that. And I am very happy that I got to do it. I, at a certain time, was not able to do it time-wise, and somebody from our LGBTQ were going to do it, but we shifted it so many times. And I just figured, because I know the Dubeckys,
Thank you.
that it would be really fun to reunite. Lara, you were there that night at the dinner.
Yes, probably.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It all came back. I just, because your last name is different, I was a little
I
bit
know. It
confused at
confuses
the
people.
beginning,
Yeah.
but I met the 2 of you at the same time, and it
Same
was so
night.
much fun. It really
Yeah.
was so much fun meeting
Yeah.
you, and it's still fun. And I really, really want to
Thank you,
thank you
Tova.
for taking of your time to come here and to really help the students. And it's just so important for them to meet somebody who's actually were doing it and not long ago was just like them, going through the same thing. So I want to say thank you so much.
It was a
Namaste.
pleasure. And I just,
Thank you.
my parting words is do not give up, ignore the no's, and just keep going. Because the no's never stop. So that doesn't matter.
Exactly. Okay,
much,
thank you
Kelly.
again.
Thank you so
again.
much, guys.